Hi, Erica. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm seeing your shiny, bright face and those amazing paintings behind you that I'm crazy about. So that always makes me happy.
Well, it's good to bring happy, wonderful art in the world, I think, isn't it?
Absolutely, especially right now. Which leads me to my first question. I'm wondering how you're doing with all of the changes and the. I mean, clearly you're very healthy. Thankfully, we're healthy and we're grateful for that. How are you doing with the whole quarantine and shut in, um, especially in terms of how you're approaching your art? Is it helpful to you that you have so much quiet time and you can really think and you can really create? Or are you feeling a little bit, stuck in the sense that you know, it's more consuming you on other levels rather than giving you the freedom to create?
Well, outside of anxiety about the what's going on in the world, um, I am a complete introvert, and so having quiet time is where I uh, sort of where I flourish, I guess. However, with that said, I'm finding it very interesting in that I am perhaps more connecting more with people and more social in this past month that we've been in uh, the distancing aspect. I've been more social via stuff like this, Zoom, talking on the phone, emailing, FaceTiming. Um, and so that's been kind of funny for me in general. As far as the creative process is concerned, I have been trying to finish things up that I started for you guys and for one of the other galleries I'm part of, and so that's been a blessing to have that time to do that with. Um, and now I'm excited to start new work. So um, I think it's been outside of the larger aspect. It's been good as far as the process has been concerned for me.
That, that's lovely to hear. I'm happy. Happy for you. I'm happy for us and whoever the other gallery is that's lucky enough to have these beautiful pieces as well. You have them right behind you, a couple that we'll be bringing into the gallery as soon as we can
Yeah.
open your doors. And they're extremely well done. And you never disappoint when you deliver. It's always so exciting to see where your creative mind is going with the gestural sort of technique that you've mastered in these abstract paintings. Um, Being on the wharf at the main wharf in Portland, we are very it's a high traffic area, very high traffic area. It's right down on Commercial Street. And often our gallery goers and visitors are interested in um, nautical harbor, that type of scene. And you have really been able to deliver some really exciting work to us. I see one, two, I guess it would be your left and right. And if you could just talk these through and the inspiration behind them, that would be great for all of us.
Well, the excuse me, the inspiration for the work is really I think a lot of us, a lot of artists can say we're inspired by the natural world or nature. But I think for me, it's really about this. I've spent most of my time living in Maine or New England area, and I really resonate with the water. Um, I also live in the Rockland area, and the aspect of sort of the craggy, rocky coast comes in to the shapes, I think, with what I'm doing, even if I'm not intentionally. thinking about that. So we have sort of the granite quarrying shapes. We have the mountainous shapes that are here. So that's sort of more on the surface. But as I get into a deeper place with the work, it's really about, I think it's really about the history of the process of the piece and the history of, and this may be a little abstract, but I think about the history of the place, whatever the place is where I am as I'm working. And that corresponds to sort of the history of, me working on the piece, again, about the process. And so there's a lot of what's happening underneath is just as important as what you see. So it can be a very visceral sort of sculptural way of working for me. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No, it was very interesting. I've seen you work, so that's fortunate in that I can share with viewers the what goes into this is quite something. I mean, there's a lot of underpainting and a lot of layering that I've seen you do. And sometimes that can lead to overworking a painting, but you always seem to know where to stop. And I think that that's such an important, um, so important for artists to have the ability to kind of stop themselves, because you can really ruin a piece if you continue forth and overwork it. Can you tell us a little bit about? It may require you getting up or moving somewhat, but the one that we have complete view of is Vessel.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you could give us the story behind Vessel.
So all of the paintings start out with a very, and it's a little different now than it used to be. I'm trying not to use a lot of Gamsol or odorless turpentine because my studio is in my living space. So I'm really careful with. I've spent a lot of time this past year sort of researching and figuring out how I can get the initial gesture, which was a lot looser because it was very drippy with a lot of turpentine. So all of the pieces start out with an initial sort of swooping arm gesture with a very deep indigo Prussian phthalo mix. And it's kind of the way my body moves, the way the arm moves. And I find that recently I've been very interested in sort of this idea of creating peaceful harmony. So it's more about sort of a horizon line. And so that's where Vessel started. And then as I choose my palette, which shifts throughout the painting because oftentimes I can't get back to a painting when I started, it takes a little bit of time sometimes before I can get back to it. So sometimes the palette choices shift as I work on it. There's a lot of, as you said, painting over and maybe scraping out, glazing as it evolves. And so with this particular one, as I was working, not intentionally, but maybe aspect of a ship evolved, perhaps. And I started to think about this idea of a vessel. So a vessel, a ship is a vessel, and a vessel of sort of our souls, if you will. A vessel of hope during this time that we're in. So for me, there's a lot of layers of meaning to that title as well as the piece. And it's sort of this misty-ish, bluish with the sun color perhaps breaking through, and we can see the hope over the horizon.
Wow, I'm glad I asked. It's almost what you're saying, it's a harmony. It's a harmony of thought, of movement, which I want to really kind of focus on for a minute because I know that you you love yoga.
Yeah.
You do a lot of, and when you said that it was a movement of your arm, I I found that to be very interesting. And as you continue to talk it further, it's so many different sensibilities that you're putting of yours that you're putting into the piece. It's exciting because it brings so many aspects of your personality together. I'll never look at another piece without really noticing other things, which I'm grateful for. We talk about you all day long in there, and now I have more things to add to it. Can you tell us a little bit about the one that's kind of behind you, but it's definitely worth seeing if we can get you to move out of the way. It's
Over.
quite a painting. That one is called Shore.
It is called Shore. Sort of had toyed with renaming it Rising because it feels like this, as I started to finish it, it feels like, again, this idea, and you know, these were painted in about 4 months. So this is very current to what's happening in the larger aspect of today. So this idea of on one level, like the light breaking through, and on another level about, you know, our maybe us as a people coming to a greater level of awareness about Earth and what's going on. On one level, actually, it's funny because this is the painting, Shore, that we're looking at over here, is the painting that I started when I did a live painting demo for you guys several summers ago, maybe 2 or 3 summers ago. I don't remember what year it was. But it started out very, very green, very viridian green. And you can still see some of that in the very under painting. And so that sort of shines through the underneath. And again, as I was working, we have this idea of the shoreline suggesting itself. Out my living space, I can see Rockland Harbor and the Camden Hills, which is a lovely, lovely vista. And I find that that has been coming in, those shapes have been coming in to the pieces, even though, again, I'm not really intentionally having that happen. So Shore, again, could work on many levels.
That's such a dreamy painting. Okay.
It is. And again, this painting started out in a whole different palette. And it actually, I had a vision of a painting something like that. So I wanted the formations, if you will, on this side, but it just really never worked. So this one has a lot of palette knife, a lot of scumbling, some glazing, and it eventually started to suggest, you know, maybe a breakwater, or, you know, a beach formation and mist. So there's this idea of the light coming through again. And I think for my process, that's really what it's about. It's like bringing the light through, if you will. But this painting actually was mostly pink at one point. And I had a friend come in and look at it with me, and he's like, this is 2 different paintings. I think you should resolve it a little bit differently. And he was really right. So I did a lot of work on this point here to bring everything together. And then it wasn't quite so pink. So that's sort of the process, I guess, behind that one.
I often get stuck and love the masts that you put in, the boat masts.
Mm-hmm.
they're grounding on some levels for the eye, but they also have a sense of wonderment. I don't know why, and I've lived, all my life by the ocean, so I still find it amazing every single time I look at it. So different aspects, boats and fishing and all of it is magical to me. But I hope that people who are viewing it that may not live near the ocean feel the same way. I almost can feel the sway, really, because sometimes you'll take that mast and you'll do that on purpose, right? You'll like tip it to the side. So
Yeah.
you're feeling that sway, and you literally feel the sway. And also, you really have bringing that light through and that sun through. Sometimes, I'll be sitting at my desk at the gallery, and I'm such a lucky person that I can look at all this beautiful work, but you can almost feel the sun on your shoulder in some respects when you're kind of looking up. You've got it coming through to a point where you really have that sense that the sun is so strong in some areas poking through. I like the sun. Now for me, I'm looking at, and I think it's really interesting, that the box, the square, as opposed to the circle of that's having that sunlight come through it at the top. I really find that unusual, and I think that's a very special part of this painting. Your paintings really give such pause for thought. What you're doing and everything you're putting into it. Again, the harmony of who you are and the many aspects of who you are really important in your work. And thank you for explaining that to us, because it makes it that much more interesting. I didn't really know if it could get more interesting just viewing it from my own eyes. But hearing you talk really gives me even more pause to think. So I'm hoping that we will have the same response from people that watch this wonderful interview. And that said, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to thank you so much for spending, this few minutes with us, and for really giving us an insight into what you're doing in your home/studio. And wishing you well and your family well over this period of time. And we're very excited to reopen our doors when time permits.
Well, I so appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. So thank you, and thank you for all you do as a gallery and bringing beauty into the world.
Thanks, Erika. We'll see you soon, and we'll see
All right.
these beauties soon.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.